Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, I'm Inas Mahiro Almufida with my two friends Difka and Fadila. We would like to discuss about teaching reading through metacognitive strategies for TFL junior high school students. English has become one of the most important international languages used in education, science, technology, and global communication. In Indonesia, English is learned as a foreign language, or we call as EFL. This means students have very limited opportunities to practice English outside the classroom. Reading is one of the most essential skills. Through reading, the student gain new knowledge, improve their vocabulary, and develop critical thinking. Reading also supports the importance of their other language skill. However, many Indonesian junior high school students still experience difficulties in reading English texts. For the example, they often have limited vocabulary, insufficient grammar knowledge, and low motivation to read. Many students also struggle to identify the main idea of the text, understanding the implicit informations, and connect ideas within a text. Instead of understanding the meaning, they usually translate 3 single words one by one. Another problem in this discussion, many English classrooms in Indonesia especially, they are still teacher-centered, right? They usually explain vocabulary and grammar while students become passive learners. As the result, students depend too much to their teacher and do not develop their independent learning skill. To solve this kind of problem, our discussion use metacognitive strategies. We believe that metacognitive strategies help the student become active readers by encouraging them to think about their own learning process. These strategies consist of 3 main stages. The first, planning before reading. The second, monitoring comprehension while reading. And the third, evaluating understanding after reading. So the 3 stages, students learn to regulate their own learning and become more independent readers. Next, let me explain about the problem formulation. Why are metacognitive are important for teaching reading? The third, how can the teacher implement these strategies in classroom? And the last is what are the advantages and challenges of using metacognitive strategies in EFL reading classes. And the goals of this explanation are the concept of the cognitive strategies, describe their importance in improving the student reading comprehensions, explain how the teachers can implement them in junior high school classroom, and identify both of advantages and the challenges of applying these strategies. And finally, the significance of the study. This discussion is expected to benefit 3 groups. The first, English teachers, by providing practical guidance for teaching reading effectively. The second, student, by helping them become more strategic, independent, and confident reader. And the third, the future research by providing reference for future studies on the metacognitive strategies and English language teaching.
We are diving into a powerful approach to language learning. So we are going to explore the unique realities of teaching English as a foreign language, or EFL. So we will look closely at the reading challenges junior high students face, and then break down the core mechanics of active mental tracking, and also demonstrate how to smoothly implement these strategies in a real-world classroom. First, to understand why this matters, we have to look at the environment. When student learns English as a foreign language, they lack natural, everyday exposure to the language outside the school boundaries. In the classroom, teachers frequently navigate significant hurdles. First, large class size. Second, deep-rooted traditions of passive learning. And last, a rigid focus on memorizing test tricks rather than building genuine comprehensions. By the time students reach the upper years of junior high, the curriculum demands that they master complex text genres, including narratives, multi-step procedures, and factual reports. This creates a steep literacy bottleneck. So, faced with unfamiliar vocabulary, so students often default to passive reading, like simply moving their eyes across the words without really processing core meanings or making simple inferences. To bridge this gap, we need to teach student metacognitions, which is simply thinking about thinking. Instead of reading blindly, an active reader consciously manages, regulates, and directs their own mind. This shifts them from passive consumers of text into active managers of their own comprehensions. So this approach relies on three distinct pillars. First is planning, where students look at the titles, look at the pictures, and predict content before they even begin reading. Second, monitoring, the crucial middle step where students actively track their own understanding while reading. And the last is evaluating, where they assess overall comprehensions and reflect on their progress after reading. We put these ideas into actions using a classic three-phase instructional framework. First, in the pre-reading phase, the teachers triggers the planning process by utilizing visual cues, maps, and brainstorming sessions to help students predict story events. Next, in the while reading phase, students actively monitor their journey, so they learn to flag confusing sentences, underline dense vocabulary, and deploy fix-up strategies like using surrounded context clue to solve comprehension gaps. And then finally, in the post-reading phase, students practice evaluating. So they will summarize the text in their own words and reflect on which mental strategies help them to succeed. By training students in these three distinct phases, we move away from passive lectures and hand them a tangible mental toolkit. This transform passive words decoding into deep comprehensions will helping young language learner to build both reading skills and long-term autonomy.
Cognitive strategies can be implemented through three stages of reading activities: pre-reading, while reading, and post-reading. In the pre-reading stage, students plan their learning. The teacher introduces the topic using picture or questions, and students activate their background knowledge, predict the content of the text, and set their reading goals. Next, in the while reading stage, students monitor their understanding. They identify the main idea, underline important information, infer the meaning of unfamiliar vocabulary from context, and reread difficult paragraphs whenever necessary. Finally, in the post-reading stage, students evaluate their learning by summarizing the text, discussing the answer, and reflecting on the reading strategies they have used. Through these three stages, students become more aware of their own thinking process while reading. The second point is the advantage of the metacognitive strategies. There are several important benefits. The first is these strategies improve student reading comprehensions because students actively construct meaning instead of only translating words. Second, they develop critical thinking skills. Students learn to analyze information, make predictions, evaluate ideas, and solve comprehension problems independently. Third, metacognitive strategies promote learner autonomy. Students become less independent on the teacher because they learn how to plan, monitor, and evaluate their own learning. In addition, these strategies help students develop self-monitoring skills, so they realize when they don't understand a text. They know which strategy to use, such as rereading or inferring meanings from context. Finally, successful reading experience can increase students' motivation because they become more confident and engaged during reading activities. The last point is challenge. Although metacognitive strategies are very beneficial, there are several challenges. The first, the instruction requires more classroom time because student needs to complete planning, monitoring, and evaluating stage. Second, many students are still accustomed to teacher-centered learning, so they may hesitate to become independent readers. Third, teachers need to provide continuous scaffolding by modeling how to use reading strategies before students can apply them independently. In addition, students have different levels of metacognitive and awareness, so teachers need to provide a different kind of support. Finally, teachers themselves need sufficient knowledge and professional training to implement metacognitive strategy effectively in the classroom. So the conclusion, metacognitive strategies help junior high school students become more active, independent, and strategic readers. Although their implementation requires time, teacher guidance, and careful planning, these strategies can significantly improve reading comprehensions and prepare students to become lifelong learners. So that's all our presentation. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.